Let's talk about movies. Everybody loves their Hollywood films, and we bitch and complain when special effects aren't up to par with what we like and what we want to be fooled by special effects. And when we can spot fakery, oh, we hate that shit. And think about how many movies people watch in a year. Now, why can't people figure out what NASA's doing? Their older work totally exposes them, especially since we've been so trained to spot fakery. Now let's look at these moon missions. We successfully landed on the moon 6 times. Look at that, Apollo 11, 12, 14, 15, 16, 17, from 69 to 72. I mean, we just went to the moon and back like if it was no big deal. We ran our little experiments and we just came back home. Now, in 2022, it's going to be 50 years since the last successful Apollo mission when we went and walked on the moon. Is anybody going to start questioning it then? I mean, look at that track record. Why not have the first female astronaut go to the moon? Wouldn't that be a good idea? Like, why not? It seemed like it wasn't that big of a deal to go before. And it's really going to be 50 years that it's going to lapse and we're still going to be fooled by this bullshit? Now, NASA is talking about going to Mars, and I can't imagine them actually fucking doing that. That is so ludicrous. But they might be forced in a corner and have to fake that, because people might start figuring this shit out. We never landed on the moon. NASA's complete fraud. They are literally doing nothing. And I don't know what's going to happen if the public starts actually talking about this shit, because our brains have got to start working at some point. This shit is absolutely absurd.
I'll just take them back there, put them under the seat. Okay. Need to take that one? No, I got it. Okay. You got another one drop there, Gene. Oh, Jack got it. Bam. Another one? Jack's getting it. Okay. Jack, we gotta make a place in here for that full bag. Let me put the small can over there, core tube over there. Have a sample. You got another one drop there, Gene. Oh, Jack got it. You got another one drop there, Gene. Oh, Jack got it. You got another one drop there, Gene. Oh, Jack got it. You got another one drop there, Gene. Oh, Jack got it. You got another one drop there, Gene. Oh, Jack got it. You got another one drop there, Gene. Oh, Jack got it.
And they got high enough apparently to close them. My guess is in Earth orbit, if you closed your eyes and just paid attention, that you would see them.
The first time they were seen was when they went to 365 miles.
Yes.
That's 650 miles below or away from the radiation.
Yeah, see, it's below. My guess if they just did it tonight. But see, if you're just going to sleep or closing your eyes or it's dark, you don't notice them. But if you'll close your eyes and pay attention, which we had an experiment to do, by the way, then you see them whistling by. Not on our mission, by the way, they hadn't been discovered yet. And not on our mission, by the way, they hadn't been discovered yet. And not on our mission, by the way, they hadn't been discovered yet.
NASA tries to be clever and say that we can't leave the Earth due to the Van Allen radiation belt.
Right now, we only can fly in Earth orbit. That's the farthest that we can go. And this new system that we're building is going to allow us to go beyond and hopefully take humans into the solar system to explore. So the moon, Mars, asteroids, there's a lot of destinations that we could go to, and we're building these building block components in order to allow us to do that eventually.
The kinds of technologies that we're testing out on Space Station are definitely helping us with our goals of going beyond low Earth orbit.
But if you're smart, you know that this is a cover for the dome. We can't leave Earth, people. I mean, Bill Nye the Science Guy even tells you this straight up.
One thing I really want your generation to embrace is that the Earth is a closed system. We cannot leave the Earth. One thing I really want your generation to embrace is that the Earth is a closed system. We cannot leave the Earth.
And you still argue otherwise. Not that we need Bill Nye to figure this out, because we don't. He's a paid-for liar. But they put the truth out so later when it becomes too much to bear, they can just say, well, we've been telling you the whole time. But you act like you don't hear it, and you just make excuses for why they say these things, and it's ridiculous.
Launch on the Soyuz is amazing, quite a bit different from the shuttle. You know, the Soyuz is a bit more like, the Soyuz actually is a bit shaped like this pen, and it goes up straight up through the atmosphere. Now, you know, you've got the space station right up there that it's doing gravity.
Well, since the government, or corrupt government, essentially controls the media, it's no problem for them to produce propaganda films. For example, for many years, John Wayne was presented as a hero, as a CB, as a Marine, as an Air Force pilot, or whatever, and he made war seem glamorous and dramatic and something that should occupy a young man's time. I have a Vietnam veteran who said, John Wayne conned me into killing 500 people in Vietnam. So what we're confronted with is a propaganda machine beyond comprehension and well-funded. During World War I, they produced films showing German soldiers spearing Belgian babies. And I might point out that National Geographic magazine picked this up and actually had presentations on this subject. And interestingly, National Geographic was one of the prime media to present photographs of astronauts cavorting on the moon. So to summarize, what American citizens are confronted with is this enormous propaganda machine. For example, the U.S. Air Force has the largest movie studios and more equipment in San Bernardino than any studio in Hollywood.
I wonder if one day that you say that you care, if you say you love me madly, I'd gladly be there like a puppet on a string. Love is just like a merry-go-round with all the fun of the fair. One day I'm feeling down on the ground, then I'm up in the air. Are you leading me on? Tomorrow will you be gone? I wonder if one day that you say that you care, if you say you love me madly, I'd gladly be there like a puppet on a string. I may win on the roundabout, then I'll lose on the swings. In or out, there is never a doubt just who's pulling the strings.
You see, the vibration of my voice box makes the air vibrate between us. Then when the air vibrates your eardrum, you hear what I'm saying. But maybe you've seen a demonstration of a bell under a glass jar. With normal air inside the jar, you could hear the bell clearly. But when the vacuum pump drew the air out of the jar, there was nothing inside to carry the vibrations of the bell. Nothing until the air was let back into the jar.
They can't forget your photo numbers. And this is core tube number 2. Okay, just in fact, you're almost driving without a hammer. But if you hand it to me, I'll get it in a second. I'm going to take a couple more shots of this before we get all in. I get the pictures. All right? Try it in real easy, Houston.
The sounds in space, it's odd to have a hammer or a metal tool and bang it against something and hear absolutely nothing. You can, sound won't travel in a vacuum, so there you are outside and you could be hitting something, no sound at all.
In space, since there's no atmosphere, there's no air, if you bang on something while you're doing your spacewalk, you will not be able to hear that.
And this leads us to the dilemma of our final segment. All modern astronauts, such as Piers Sellers and Mike Massimino, claim to hear absolutely nothing when they're out on the International Space Station in the vacuum, banging away with metal tools and objects, whereas during the Apollo missions, all kinds of sounds have been recorded that should not be possible if they are on the moon in the vacuum of space.
Okay, just in fact, you're almost driving without a hammer. But if you hand it to me, I'll get it in a second. I'm going to take a couple more shots of this before we get all in. I get the pictures. All right? Try it in real easy, Houston.
That does not sound like the spacesuit acting like a drum at all. It sounds like a metal hammer striking a metal object repeatedly with authority. Pictured is Alan Bean during Apollo 12 striking a metal core tube into the so-called lunar surface with a metal hammer. This is an interview with Apollo astronauts Alan Bean and Pete Conrad done by the Apollo Lunar Surface Journal. They are once again taking the position that the sound is coming through the hand and transmitting into the microphones in the helmet. Alan Bean says, "I would have said it wasn't possible," and Pete Conrad responds, "The other guy can't hear it." If the sound is coming through Alan Bean's microphone, then like his voice, it must be transmitted directly into the headset of Pete Conrad, so his statement makes no sense. Alan Bean's statement makes a lot of sense, since it would not have been possible in a vacuum. When Bean says, "I would have said it wasn't possible," he has science on his side. And he also has NASA on his side, at least up until August 19th, 2011. And this brings us to the most important graphic in the film. This is a web page that has been disappeared from the internet by NASA as of August 2011. It was at nasa.gov, running concurrently with the Apollo Lunar Surface Journal between 2009 and September 2011. However, this page, which was created for children, you can see the banner at the top, Lunar Science for Kids. This page directly contradicts the assertions made in the Apollo Lunar Surface Journal concerning the hammering sounds in Apollo 12, 15, and 17. This page talks about the science involved with sound on the moon, and it does so correctly. And that is why NASA has disappeared it from the web. The contradiction between the journal and this page was brought up in the very popular Moon Zoo forum. And that is where I first became aware of the situation. Reader Tom128 pointed out the contradiction between the site for children and the journal. And I went looking for the site for children and could not find it. I then went to my favorite research tool, the Wayback Machine at archive.org, and I was able to find an old version of the page that NASA did not clean up. And whenever I see information go missing from the web, it always starts me thinking, and this was the genesis of the film. At that moment, I became a NASA moon hoax researcher. You've seen the image on the right of the graphic before. That is Alan Bean hammering a core tube during Apollo 12, and this is the sound of such hammering. The graphic is problematic for NASA because of the contradiction to the journal, and the graphic is correct science. And I quote, "Sound needs something to travel through to get from one place to another. On the moon, since there is no air, sound cannot travel above the surface. So, there are no sounds on the surface of the moon. When the Apollo astronauts were out on the moon's surface, they could only talk to each other and to mission control by using the radios in their air-filled helmets. Even when the astronaut in the photo to the right hit a metal tube into the ground with a hammer, no sound was made."
Amazing. That is amazing.
Doesn't that make you feel small? Like nothing even matters. She turned her eyes to me, as deep as any ocean, as sweet as any harmony. But she blinded me with science.
She blinded me with science.
Blinded me with. Thank you.
Very nominal, remarkably good. Beautiful, really beautiful.
An actor.
Hey, know what I mean? Know what I mean? That's nuts. Know what I mean? Say no more. Know what I mean?
And if you don't agree with it, you get your fingernails pulled out.
But Mr. Kako, it's the same with democracies, and American democracy, I think, is a prime example here, because if you disagree with the American way of living a life, you know, you face a very real danger of a war being pushed onto your country.
Let me ask you a question, right? In Afghanistan, do they harbor terrorists who wanted to do damage to the United States?
I don't know that.
Do nations...
And I don't
okay, let me ask you a
know
question
that.
now. On tape, let me ask you a question.
Absolutely.
Who was behind 9/11? Are you a conspiracy theorist?
Not
Are
really.
you these people that think that maybe George W. Bush toppled his own building? What do you think is behind 9/11? Let me ask you that question. Who was behind 9/11?
I think...
Let me ask you a question.
I heard
Who
your
was
question.
behind 9/11?
Mr. Kako, I think...
Answer me a simple question. Who is behind 9/11? I give you the courtesy of being on your show. You should give me the courtesy of answering one simple question.
Well, okay,
Who is behind 9/11?
I do tend to believe in this conventional narrative of Al-Qaeda and Osama bin Laden being behind that tragic and horrendous attack. But the question is whether the death of those people justified hundreds of thousands of people who were killed afterwards. And I don't think the goals that were set out before that war were actually achieved during that war. And that's the biggest problem. You've been very critical of radical groups trying to impose that sort of that point of view, and I totally agree with you. But I think the way and the means that democracies employ are not much better.
President Trump just tweeted about the extreme cold slamming more than 17 million Americans tonight. But here's the breaking part. His tweet also mocked the science of climate change. The president writes, in the East, it could be the coldest New Year's Eve on record. Perhaps we could use a little bit of that good old global warming that our country, but not other countries, was going to pay trillions of dollars to protect against. Bundle up. This as a crushing cold front sweeps the country. Frigid temperatures have settled in from Massachusetts through North Dakota. Let's go to our meteorologist, Allison Chinchar, in the Weather Center. International Falls, Minnesota, my great home state, breaking records once again. 36 below or something crazy like that.
Yeah, and other states are going to be breaking their record lows, not just tonight, but for the next several nights.